Well, welcome back to the Munn Avenue News podcast and videocast presented by munnavenuepress.com. We are a publisher and marketer of books for authors around the world now. And I'm so delighted today to have a guest who I think wrote a very special book, a really different book that he's going to talk about. His name is Don Gabor, and I'll read you a very brief bio, and then we'll learn more about Don's book, Vienna on Fire. Don is the author of How to Start a Conversation and Make Friends and 7 other books and audio programs on communication skills that have sold nearly 1 million copies worldwide. Don has presented communication workshops to corporations and small businesses, associations, and colleges since 1981. He was a member of the National Speakers Association for 20 years and was the 2010 and 11 president of the New York City chapter. He lives in Brooklyn with his wife, Eileen, and their cat, Ruby. So, Don, welcome.
Well, thank you, Charlie. I'm thrilled to be on your show.
Which we're going to talk a lot about. I would just like to know a little more about your background as a conversation expert. What is that? What is this special skill you have?
You know, it's funny. This is something I used to get in trouble for when I was a kid. In 9th grade, Mr. Eisenberger, the strict English teacher, was asking some questions, and I was gabbing to one of my, schoolmates, and, Mr. Gabor, what's the answer to that question? And I don't know how, and I don't remember the question, but I answered it. And he said to me, Mr. Gabor, you're the only person I've ever met who can talk and listen at the same time. Now get out and go stand in the hall. And I took that as some career advice. And I make a joke out of it, but in a way, he kind of put his finger on it. And when I moved to New York in 1979, I had quite a bit of teaching background, and teaching guitar and in elementary school, students of various ages and disciplines. But when I got to New York, I started working for an adult education program, and they asked me to teach a class that they had put together called How to Start a Conversation. And this was in 1980. I can't believe it's been that long that I've been writing and speaking on this subject, but that's when it started. And it was that was the dawn of this 40-plus year career. And this was something that I learned, that a lot of people felt they didn't feel comfortable doing this. They didn't feel comfortable walking into a room full of people. They didn't feel comfortable just breaking the ice and starting a conversation and all the other things that go on. And when people meet one another for the first time. And so to kind of summarize the whole idea of what makes a conversation expert, what I did was, and this was sort of my nature and how I do things, I guess, is I read a lot of background information before I taught the class, because I can walk into a group of people and start conversations. But I thought, well, what are some of the issues that people have, and what's been written about it? And of course, Dale Carnegie is the great grandfather of this self-help movement. And at that time, he had written a book, how to talk, how to meet people and influence people. And it's a great book, but it was written in a style that really I saw left something out. And what I added to that genre was taking the skills and breaking them down into very thin, small units, sort of like if you went to a place and they were slicing something very, very thin, and I presented those pieces, body language, asking questions that evoke a more detailed response, or fishing questions for topics, how to balance the conversation, all these kind of skill sets that a lot of people took for granted, either good conversationalists or poor conversationalists, or anywhere in between, and really think about it on a skill set level. My view is all speaking is public speaking, whether you're speaking to one person or a room full of people, and these skills overlap. And so for the next 10 years, I taught these workshops with 10, 20, 30, 40 people in it, first for 3 hours. Then it turned into 4 2-hour sessions over a month period, once a week. And then in 1991, I joined the National Speakers Association as a professional speaker and started presenting the workshops in a more corporate market for networking and building your business and just building social and professional networks. And it's just continued. I've written several books over these 40 years on that topic, and it's been great. It's been a great ride. It's fun. I tell people there's nothing that's more fun to me than meeting somebody and finding out where they're at and what they like to do. So that's how I became an expert, is by just learning and doing, and then professionally integrating those skills into a business. And this is the tricky part in any kind of writing or speaking endeavor is that integration.
Sure. And I want to talk more about your book, but I do have a question about conversational style. I'm very interested in this topic too, and I've done a lot of public speaking and teaching, so I relate to it. But isn't it the case that, like, we form these habits of interaction as we grow up or at school, and there's a pattern,
Yep, absolutely.
and some patterns are good and other patterns are not good. So I suppose what you're doing is enlightening people about maybe bad patterns and how to improve them, or how do you get out of a habit? How do you change a habit?
Well, there's been lots of books written about how to do that. And, I think, to get back to your style issue, this is what I tell people, because I have a style of speaking and you have a style of speaking. And the secret to connecting with people, this is my view, and I'm not a therapist or psychologist. I'm just this guy who has helped a lot of people overcome what has been for many a lifelong, struggle. It's like a dance. And if you want to dance with other people, you have to be flexible and be able to adapt your style to the other person's style. Now, and you also have to have an idea of what your style is, and its pros and cons, its strengths and weaknesses, and some of the other styles of people with whom you will be speaking. So the idea is, when I meet somebody, it doesn't take me too long to figure out, are they introverted or extroverted? Those are the big two, right? And most people say, well, if they're shy, they're introverted. If they're outgoing, they're extroverted. Well, extroverted people can start conversations. The problem is they don't like to end them, and they like to also talk too much. And maybe I have fallen into that category. The introverted style tends to be more retentive and hanging back. They're not initiating. But if somebody shows an interest in what they do, or what he or she is involved in, they are willing to open up. So this is where the adaptation comes in. And, you talk about the strengths and weaknesses, or good habits and bad habits. The number one habit that everybody needs to improve, and myself, I was told one day it was an area I needed to improve, is listening. And this is really the key to any conversation, is to listen and then connect in some way, and find some kind of commonality. Sometimes it takes a little while. Sometimes it happens right away. You've met people who think, I just clicked with that person. And then sometimes you think, I didn't know what to say to the person. I just don't know what to say. And so this is part of understanding your own style, the strengths and weaknesses, and some of the styles of others. And there's really only 4 basic styles. And, I don't want to go in and elucidate on all of them, but that's really the way to get over some of these humps.
Well, it's such an interesting topic. I could spend the whole time talking about it too. And then there's the whole topic of like active listening, not just sitting there, but
That's right.
prompting people and asking leading questions. And
Hmm.
it's interesting that um, I like you try to be a good active listener, and people who don't talk much but listen effectively, the other people say, "Oh, they're so smart,"
Yeah. Let me. Yeah.
because they keep their mouths shut and they listen and seem interested in what I have to say. So,
Well, you see, this is where the shy person will say, I'm a good listener, but I don't really like to, put out too much. And there's the pitfall, because one of the tricks, and I won't go into all the details, but of making small talk, which introverted people, shy people tend to, they hate that. But what they're missing is that when you're talking with somebody, particularly somebody that you don't know or you just met, they're looking for clues from the person with whom they're speaking, what he or she wants to talk about. It's not just what I want to talk about. I want to know what you want to talk about. So this balance of talking and listening, revealing a little bit of information, not just asking questions and showing interest, but revealing in a balanced way, exchanging information. It's very important. It shows you're open. It shows that you're willing to communicate, and it shows that you want to participate. And this is something where I've been, you know, on my soapbox for a long time about this, because it works and it helps people,
yeah.
and it kind of can mitigate a lot of the habits that have held people back.
Sure, sure. It makes perfect sense. So you